The dude comes to fight. He loves fighting just as much as me. Styles make matchups, and this is a stylistic matchup for the fans. Someone's going to get knocked out unless he turns into a bitch and tries to turn this into a wrestling match the whole time. He's talking about timid souls taking a step backwards. He's going to be a timid soul when he starts shooting for legs because he doesn't like the power. That's what I think. And with that, welcome to Early Stoppage, a show where the news of the day is usually given just enough time, but sometimes not enough. If this is your first time stopping by, we thank you. And get ready for something you won't find anywhere else. I'm John Franklin. I'm joined by the God, father of Fight Night Picks, Craig Allen. Craig, how are you?
John, I'm well. It's a big week with Fight Night Picks. You're going to be at an event. I'm going to be at a much smaller event. Listen, the last MMA event I went to, let's think way back, because I don't know when the last one you were at, but the last one I went to was February 2020, right before the pandemic. It was New England Fights. UFC veteran Manny Bermudez taking on Bruce Boynton in the main event there. It's been that long. And that event was Fight League Atlantic's very first event. It was the same night, but I flew to Portland to go to Florida. Long story short, I didn't make it to the first one, but the second one is coming up on Saturday from the Moncton Coliseum. I will be there. And a lot of people, John, are probably freaked out by my background because it doesn't look anything like it normally does. And let me tell you this. I've been wearing my safety glasses. I've been sharpening my pencil. There's a lot of work going on at this house. You can't miss it. There is a lot of work going on. So I'm fired the F up. Where are you going to be this week?
I'm fired the F up too. I'm going to be at the Footprint Center here in Phoenix, here in Legend City. I am going to be at the Bellator event, 268. Bader's fighting, Nemkov's fighting, Benson Henderson's fighting, not for a title, which we'll get to later.
Maria Henderson's fighting?
Maria Henderson is opening the card. I'm super excited. I haven't covered a fight in a while. Obviously, not a lot of people have covered fights in a while because of the pandemic. We just started getting back into it. But, yeah, I'm excited. But before we get into that, let's get into this shirt that I'm wearing. Quick story, Wildcard Boxing. I went on an anniversary trip last week. I had the week off, and we decided to drive to PCH. So we flew into Seattle and then drove down to PCH. Last day was in LA. So as we were actually, last day was in Seal Beach. That's another story, but we were in LA the day before the last day, and we decided to go over to Wildcard Boxing. And so I get there.
Whoa. Sorry. We decided to go?
Yeah, my wife and I. It was our anniversary trip.
We didn't decide to go to Wildcard Boxing. You decided. She went with you.
That's fair. So here's the situation. That's actually her idea. That's neither here nor there. But so we get there, and it's kind of like in a little bit of a strip mall, and I'll post some pictures. And anyway, so we go around back, which is the way you go in. There's a staircase, and I go, I'm just gonna go in and get a shirt. I've been to 100 gyms. I don't want to bother anybody. So there's a guy standing outside. I was like, hey, can I go in and get a shirt? And he's like, yeah, sure. So I go in. As I'm walking up the stairs, Freddie Roach walks out. And I'm like, Mr. Roach, how are you? I just came in to get a shirt. I don't want to bug you. And turns out they got great COVID protocols there. They wanted to see my vaccine card. They had all this stuff that they wanted to run me through. So I go back out to the car. Initially, I was just going to grab a shirt. Instead, got my vaccine card, grabbed my wife. We go inside. And the nicest guy I have ever met in combat sports talked to me for about 20 minutes. His guy were working out. I asked him about, if he thought that Manny would have won the fight with Floyd Mayweather if it happened earlier. Of course, he said yes. But just a really nice guy. We took pictures. He spent some time with me. It was a really great experience. And they didn't have the shirt I wanted, so they comped me this one, which is also a cool shirt, but it wasn't exactly the one that I wanted. So they were like, here. They said, here's a shirt. They smacked me on the ass and sent me on my way. So it was a good day at Wildcard Boxing. Freddie Roach, tremendous guy. Seal of approval from John Franklin, one half of Early Stoppage.
I love to hear it. I absolutely love to hear it. I mean, that's crazy.
It is crazy. On this episode of Early Stoppage, we talk Quadruple C, Govenor Penn, and hashtag hot girl problems. We begin, Craig, with John Jones. Craig, after everything that John Jones has done, his most recent transgression is either the most egregious or simply the straw that broke the camel's back, and he is out. with the potential to return. But he is out at JacksonWink. We start this week with a two-parter, Craig. One, do you think JacksonWink was wise to part ways with Jon Jones? And two, do you think the UFC might not be far behind?
Yep, I totally understand that. Based on a tweet that said actions speak louder than words. The quote tweet by Johnny Bones. Yeah, or yep, sorry. I totally understand that. That's why I'm not going to do some big PR stunt, hire a publicist. I'm not going to do anything like that. I know it's real. I know that I'm ready. Time will take care of the rest. You know what's weird, John? And I know this is something that we have planned for the very end of the show. I peeked. I saw it there. But you know, a middling lightweight has domestic violence issues. He's been arrested a couple times in 2021. I'm talking about Luis Pena, and the UFC decides to release him. Super mega star, one of the best athletes we've ever seen in this sport of MMA, gets arrested time and time and time again, and nothing really happens. I just look at this as, you know, there's definitely a double standard out there. And you see this in a lot of different sports, different walks of life, so on and so forth. I can sit here and drone on forever. I'll keep this segment for myself, quick and short, because we were feeding a fed horse in our last episode. But to me, I just find it all ridiculous. You know what? Good for JacksonWink on being... I wouldn't say this isn't proactive, right, John? Because they waited a while before they made their ultimate decision. So I'm sure they were getting some pressure from whether it was media, fans, people outside of the sport, whoever it was. They finally made this decision. You know, maybe it's a little bit of a nudge to kind of put Jon Jones in his place and put him in the right direction. And, you know, he realizes that he needs the team there. He probably should get back there, and he's got to kind of, you know, take the necessary steps to get back in the good graces of the gym, to get back in the good graces of society, so on and so forth. But I just hate talking about this topic so much, because the trouble for me, when you ask a question, you're supposed to be able to provide a solution. There's so many people out there in this world that just ask questions. And I'll tell you one thing, and I hate this. If you're listening to me out here and somebody ever taught you that the best way to have an argument is to just make it cyclical and ask more questions, you're a fucking idiot. You're an absolute fucking idiot, and people are going to fucking hate you for it. I have a class ring here somewhere in this new office, and this is how big of a dork I am. If you didn't know, I'm a guy that for a brief period of time, I had safety glasses in my plaid shirt with a pencil. I'm not big of a dork. But John, here's how big of a dork I am. I have a class ring from high school. It's got a ruby. I was born in July. It's got the engraving of the high school on it. My mom said, "You're stupid for getting this." I said, "I know." But on the inside, John, it says debate. It's got a gavel and like a little podium. I took debate when I was in high school. I learned the rules of debating people. Don't ever debate. Don't ever make it cyclical. Point of all of this, and I know now I have droned on about something totally different. My giant point here is, don't ask questions if you don't have a solution. I don't have any questions for this because I don't honestly have a solution. I think I covered it in our last episode of Really Stoppage. If you missed that, it's the tie-dye one with Sean O'Malley and Conor McGregor on the front. But I don't have a solution. This has just happened again and again, and it's just a shame. So good on JacksonWink for now, I guess. But I don't have much more to add about old Johnny Bones.
I don't have much to add either. I'll just say this. You know, Jon Jones is a rare athlete where I always process his life as if I'm watching a 30 for 30. And I say to myself, where are we at in the 30 for 30? Are we halfway? Are we 3/4 of the way? Are we almost done? And a couple of times I've thought we're 3/4 of the way done. This is the redemption for him. And then something else happens and he continues to find the banana peel every time. But now this is the first time that JacksonWink has taken a stand against it. The one text that I wanted to send this week that I did not was I wanted to reach out to Mike Winklejohn. And I will ask this question at some point. And I have one question for him. And it's this. Is the situation with Jon Jones worse than we think it is? Or is it not as bad as we think it is? That's it. That's all I want to know from him. And if he says it's worse than we think it is, then I think everybody should cut ties with Jon Jones because it's hurtling towards a horrible ending. And that's not what I want for him. I mean, I've compared Jon Jones to everybody from, O.J. Simpson to the Zodiac. I don't know. I've made some horrible comparisons with this guy. But I will say this is the first time the gym stepped in, a gym that supported him for a really, really, really long time. So that's either going to be a wake-up call for Jon Jones or it's going to make things worse. And to be honest, I mean, how many wake-up calls does somebody need? I mean, this guy is John Jones hits the snooze button more than anybody on these wake-up calls. So I think that, I'm a little bit concerned about him moving forward just from one human being to another. But I think that this is the biggest step that JacksonWink's ever taken. I don't know if I'm ready to say the UFC is going to go that far. But I think they'll probably keep him around, and he'll either be in Las Vegas, which would be a horrible idea, training at the PI, or he'll go to some huge gym. Hopefully not American Top Team, because the last place that dude needs to be is in Miami.
Yeah, you know what, John? I like to have fun on this show. I'm the plaid guy that loves to have a good time. And listen, John, the fight between Cyril Gane and Francis Ngannou was official, like a referee with a whistle, but the news persists. Gane is saying that he's afraid, or rather unafraid, because why would you be? I mean, former teammate of Ngannou's power, which is typical pre-fight banner, but is making a much bigger claim, saying that the UFC is trying to discredit him. The quote goes as follows: "The only issue is how, because on my end, I know that was the way to apply pressure. It didn't seem right," Ngannou said of the marketing ahead of UFC 265. "I find it so awkward that it didn't even bother me. I'm like, what's going on? Okay, let's do it. What bothers me is the fact that to promote that fight, they were trying to discredit me and pretend if you want to go on vacation, keep yourself. And when you want to fight, we are here. No, I want to fight, and I wasn't on vacation." And they use a video from Embedded to play that game, to pretend, to discredit me, and to show that I was on vacation. John, is this a bad sign for the future of the relationship between the UFC and Mr. Francis Ngannou?
I'm of two minds when it comes to this, because I think Ngannou, okay, first of all, there are guys who have had this type of tumultuous relationship with the UFC before and salvaged it. St. Pierre at times, Nate Diaz at times, Connor at times. There are people that have been on, and there are probably guys way worse than that, who the UFC have kind of forgotten, forgiven their misgivings and still let them back under the tent. I don't know if Ngannou has that kind of juice. I do think he is a much more popular athlete than you would think. I think that he has a look, and he is recognized by that look. Like if you flashed his picture up to a lot of people, they might guess his name. They would for sure say UFC. So from that, or they'd say Zion Williamson. But from that perspective, I think that his Q rating might be higher than we think. But I just don't see the UFC giving this kind of guy that leeway. And I think that they would just continue to bury him, put him on ice. They wouldn't cut him. But they would. I don't think that this is going to work out for him. So I don't think it's a bad sign. I just don't think he's got the kind of clout to pull off the move that he's trying to pull off.
It's weird, right? Because the heavyweight division's been stagnant for a long time. Stipe beats Fabrizio Verdum, and then it's Stipe beats some guys, and then Stipe DC, and then all of a sudden, once Stipe's the king, Francis comes in and obliterates him. And to me, it was supposed to be just Francis goes on an absolute, buzzsaw through the division, and nobody can beat him. And you talk about Francis Ngannou, he's one of those unique athletes, because let's pick Zion Williamson, for instance. What if Zion in college went, you know what? I want to be the best hockey player in the world. But in order for me to be the best hockey player in the world, I have to figure out my handles on the court. So then he goes and he dominates basketball. And late in his career, boom, all of a sudden, playing for the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, he's got Gordon Bombay behind him. And it's a story and legend of Francis Ngannou as like the next Zdeno Chara in the NHL. Now I'm mixing players, I'm mixing teams, I'm mixing movies with real life. But the whole point of this is Francis Ngannou's overall goal. What is it, John?
To be the heavyweight champion of the world?
It was to be the greatest boxer that he could be.
That's right.
And to become a champion boxer. So to me, he could just tomorrow go, you know what? Forget about this. Anthony Joshua is like a stale piece of meat that somebody left out on their back deck. I'm going to go beat Anthony Joshua. And do you think Eddie Hearn would say no to that fight? Pretty sure he'd say yes. I mean, Vitor Belfort was supposed to fight Oscar De La Hoya in 2021. So I'd be about some of those fights. To me, I wish personally, selfishly, that Francis was put on that pedestal, put under that spotlight, and made the biggest star that the UFC has, because I think he has that crossover ability. He can speak French. He can speak English. He really has that global appeal, to me anyway. But yeah, it just seems weird that it's kind of like, yeah, let's just bury him. We have other people. And I understand That somebody asked this question. Do you not understand how the UFC is a business? Because I put it out there. Elias Theodore, who's running the UFC, compared to Sam Alvey, he's lost like what 5, 6, 7 fights in a row. And why would they cut the good guy versus the bad guy? And somebody went out there and replied, "Do you understand the UFC is a business? This is my opportunity. This is my Ariel Helwani chance, John. So I'm going to take it." Do you fucking watch my show? Of course I understand how it works. Come on, get that garbage out of here, as Jack Armstrong would say. Back to you, John.
Well, yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on a lot of points. I think the weird part for Ngannou is that you have to, like, there's an old saying, I'm a teacher, and teachers don't get paid a lot. And there's a reason why. Because you get paid based on how much money you can make someone else, right? I teach 4th grade. I'm not going to, if one of my kids goes on to be a millionaire, he's not going to look back and say, I owe it all to Mr. Franklin. So, because I taught him in 4th grade. So,
you don't know that yet.
I don't know that yet, but we'll see. I doubt it, but we'll see. But my point is that the things that you are right, that there is a path for Francis Ngannou that he would probably prefer to be on than the one that he's on. But to get to that path, he would have to do 2 things. 1, prove to the UFC that he has no value to them. And 2, do it in a way that would make them willing to cut him. Only the people that are able to do that are able to do outside ventures, are people like Conor, who have value, who are leaving the promotion to then come back a bigger star than when they left, right? With the Floyd Mayweather fight, or people they have no use for, Ben Askren, Tyron Woodley. Ngannou doesn't fit into either category, right? Now, could you make an argument that if Francis Ngannou fought Anthony Joshua, he'd be a bigger star than when he left the UFC? Absolutely. But I just don't see the UFC acquiescing to him in that way, because he's not enough of a draw for the UFC for them to, like Conor's like, okay, let me do my thing and I'll make you a lot of money. Yeah, they could see that. They can't see the path with Ngannou, which is unfortunate, because I feel like the UFC, when you talk about, do you understand this is a business? Here's what they know about running a business. They know how to put somebody on ice and make it seem like they're not on ice. And they offer them the wrong fights. They give them bad matchups at short notice, but they fulfill their obligations of offering fights. They know what they're doing, man. If they want Francis Ngannou to stick around and do nothing, he's going to stick around and do nothing.
That much is true.
Craig, we move on. Craig, I don't know if you know, but I'll be at the Footprint Center this weekend in Phoenix, Arizona, downtown, covering Bellator for this fine channel, and also in attendance, in addition to me, will be Benson Henderson. He'll be fighting Brett Primus. They will be fighting at 155 pounds, but they will not be fighting for any gold, as Bellator has already booked the title fight for the vacant lightweight title between Patricky Ferrer, Patricio Pitbull's younger brother, and Peter Queally. That's going to be the lightweight vacancy title bout. The fight is set to headline Bellator 270, which will go down in Dublin, Ireland, November 5th, 2021. You will not be surprised to find out Benson Henderson is displeased with this decision, saying about the chances of getting a title fight after this win. I certainly hope so. I'm going to do my job and make sure I go out there and beat up the former champion, Mr. Primus, and make my statement for why in the world would you have a title fight and not have me in it? But whatever. That's cool. I got to make my case. If that's the way it is, by all means, let's do it. So the question to you, Craig, is who's right? The Bellator brass or Benson Henderson?
The Bellator brass. When was the last time Benson Henderson won a fight? To me, he lost his last 2. He got knocked out by Michael Chandler, and then he got out grappled by Jason Jackson at 170. You got to win a fight. You got to win a fight. Now, Patricky hasn't won a fight, but he had a competitive fight against Peter Queally that ended in a little bit of a question mark. And you can kind of draw off the fact that brother vacates belt. Other brother looks to win belt. And Patricky's a fun fighter. Not to say that Benson isn't, but when you get out grappled, which is the thing that you're good at, and you're game to fight at 170 pounds or 155, Jason Jackson's a motherfucker. Jason Jackson is, I won't go as, I almost did. I won't go as far as saying he's your next champion, but I would have liked Jason Jackson to make it to the UFC off Dana White's Contender Series. I know he had that weird ankle injury. He goes to Titan. He's the Titan champ. He's the LFA champ, and then he's into Bellator. I think Yaroslav Amosov might actually beat him. All this to say, that's how highly I think of Jason Jackson. But even if Benson Henderson had no shot in that fight, and he has a really hard path to make it to the title. Now, hopefully my words don't make it from me to you to Benson, because I don't really have any answers. But it's just, yeah, when I look at your record and you've lost your last 2 fights, you don't really have much of a leg to stand on in being deserving of that title shot. Again, big counter is Patricky hasn't really been winning, but still, there's a little bit more juice in that fight against Queally.
Well, here's the thing. Benson Henderson's a former champion lightweight, long time ago. I get it. You could promote the fact that he was the lightweight champion of UFC. Now he's going to try to be the lightweight champion of Bellator. Here's the where the rubber sort of meets the road. And you're right. You can't lose your last 2 and look for a title shot. You can look for a favorable fight, but not a title shot. My man, when I looked up Peter Queally, the showstopper, guess what flag I see next to his name? The Irish flag. Guess where the fight is? Ireland. So if you're going to take the brother from the former champ that vacated and he needs a opponent and the fight's in Ireland, I mean, it sort of sets itself up. So I'm with Benson in the whole put some respect on my name argument, but I'm with you in the sense that this makes sense based on all the factors that are involved.
Yeah, I really kind of hammered that one with This Week in MMA, Bellator 268 previews and predictions. I talked about that one quite a bit. But, John, something that I haven't talked about this week, Kamaru Usman is apparently in the Colby-Covington compliment game these days, saying Covington is a top 15 welterweight of all time. So what gives? Did Usman finally have a, come to Jesus moment regarding Covington, or is this gamesmanship ahead of their upcoming bout?
I don't know if it's gamesmanship, but here's the move that have, if you want to talk about the playbook, and Chael Sonnen wrote it, but if you want to talk about the playbook of how you both promote a fight and then put yourself over, the way that you do it is you talk about how horrible your opponent is before the fight, and then you talk about how great he was after the fight. Because if you talk about how horrible your opponent was after the fight, it doesn't look like much of an accomplishment to beat him, does it? So what Kamaru Usman is doing now is sort of by his own hand padding his resume. He's saying, guess what? This kid's pretty legit. I know we've had our differences. I know he's kind of a jerk off, but he's an amazing fighter. So doing what I did to him last time and doing what I plan to do to him this time is quite an accomplishment. So I don't think he likes Colby Covington anymore. I don't think he's just like woke up one day and said, I need to compliment this kid. I've been too tough on him. No, I think he's just trying to pad himself up by making Covington look good.
I think I've cussed in every single segment. Do you want me to add some more in there?
You should. You're on a roll.
Fucking guy is arguably the best welterweight in the world. See, it took me a little bit there. And I've got, listen, you can't see it all that great, but up there, see that little squiggle? Not Randy Jackson. It's not a samurai sword. It's Carlos Newton signing a Canadian flag. And listen, we got the Carlos Newtons of the world and obviously GSP, former champion. Kamaru is one of the best out there, and he had a very competitive fight against Colby Covington. So, I 100% agree with you. I just have one question for you before we move on. Is it gamesmanship when a guy comes into a fight and it's supposed to be at 170 pounds, and at the start of the week he goes, you know what? It's at 185. Is that gamesmanship?
Yeah, I think it is.
No, it's horse shit. Fuck that.
Fair enough.
All right.
Craig, we move on. Let's talk about one of our favorite fighters, friend of the show, Cory Sandhagen. David Sandhagen. I can never get it right. Listen, it's gotten to be a thing, this guy. Him getting a title shot is something we've been expecting for some time now. It's an interim that he's earned, but baby steps. It's against who many think is the rightful champion, Petr Yan. And Sandhagen says, this is the real fight. This is the real title fight. So the question is, do you agree with Cory Sandhagen, or do you think that no title fight is legit unless it involves Aljamain Sterling?
I'm cool with this fight. The only thing that I'll say is about Dillashaw, Dalla Dillashaw, is the fact that he's hurt, right? So he can't fight. It's almost like when you look at flyweight, and we've kind of talked about this before, Deiveson Figueiredo is going to fight Brandon Moreno a third time. Well, we know how the second fight went. Brandon finished him. Do we need a third fight? Well, we do, because Pantoja's hurt. Maskarov's got another fight. And it's the same thing at the top of 135. I mean, there's another guy that's trying to get back into the mix that we're going to talk about later on. But to me, I'm actually fine with this fight. You know, you got to kind of understand the way that the division's working, who's in, who's out. I'm cool with this one. The one thing that I have to add on this one, how weird is it that I thought Aljamain Sterling was hurt? So why does he look bodied up at the UFC PI every single day in every Instagram post I ever see? Like, I'll let you drink
Maybe
your water.
Got one of those. Maybe he's got one of those ailments that lets you stay yoked up. Maybe he's eating less, so it makes him look trimmer. Maybe he's vomiting more, so it looks, that's how he got his 6-pack. That was too much.
Hey, now.
Listen, my thoughts on this fight are have some consistency, man. You can't tell me that Benson Henderson can't have a title shot off a loss, and we give one to Sandhagen. I mean,
he won that fight. He beat Dillashaw. Come on.
Listen, we can't play the coulda wouldas. I think
I play them every single week
for a reason. There's scorecards for a reason. His said L last time, so I'm with you. I mean, I wanted to watch these guys fight. They're gonna fight, so I mean, I'm fine with it. I honestly think that Sterling made. I've heard this on the various underground whisper networks that we may not see
allegedly,
sprinkle the allegedly, DC Samaro. We may never see Sterling again. It would be the ultimate troll job to win the fight and never give the kid back give the kid the rematch. So yeah, that's where I stand on it.
John, we'll go from up at the tippity top tier of the divisions down to flyweight, and it's many leagues under the sea, John, because former Cage Warriors flyweight champion Jake Hadley is in the UFC, but it's not without some controversy. Hadley, who missed weight, he was given a contract against the wishes of matchmakers Sean Shelby and Mick Maynard, and Dana White disclosed this, saying, he said, "When I left the back room, my instructions were not to sign this guy." White said, according to Hunter Campbell, "Sean and Mick stormed out of the room when I did and took off tonight, so they're not happy about it. I just have a gut feeling that this kid has something special, and I broke all my own rules and didn't listen to what they said. So hopefully I'm right on this, and this kid doesn't make a dickhead out of me." So the question is this kid going to make a dickhead? Is the kid worth Dana breaking his own rules, and is it unfair to him to be welcomed to the UFC with Dana disclosing the behind the scenes to the media?
Let me ask you a question, because I'm not a big Contender Series watcher.
Give it to me. 30,000 subscribers. We'll have the picks and previews, but we're not there yet.
I meant to text this to you earlier, and I never did. Here's the graphic for this segment. And listen, if I did a horrible job,
please don't make it a dickhead.
No, is that Jack Hadley?
That's Jake Hadley. Yeah,
Jake Hadley.
I've seen his fights with Cage Warriors.
This guy looks like Jeremy Horn. He looks like Jeremy Horn's illegitimate son. So my question is, all due respect to Jeremy Horn, he fought for a belt 100 years ago. We probably shouldn't have, but he did. Anybody that looks like Jeremy Horn to me is not a guy that you risk having make a dickhead out of you. So I think that, either I'm completely reading this guy wrong and judging a book by its cover.
You are.
I mean, of all the people that you're going to roll the dice on, who's the kid that he didn't sign? He's in Bellator now. There's a huge deal about it. Lockney?
Jason Jackson?
No, isn't it Lockney?
Lockney was with PFL, but yeah.
Right.
That's the guy.
He's the guy that everybody thought he should have signed, and there was a big.
Yep.
Why didn't he sign him?
Because he went for a takedown at the end of the fight to win it. Hey, coming up this weekend, I got a great example. Bellator 268 in the co-main event. I actually, great segue. I actually have the quote somewhere. Anyway, it's not right here. Paraphrasing what Dana said, but Julius Angliskas, and that's how you pronounce it, Angliskas. It's not spelled like that, but it's Angliskas. He basically said, his opponent tired in the first round, and Julius just kind of played with his food. He really should have gone after the kill, so he's going to have to go get some more wins. Well, guess what? Now he's fighting for a title with Bellator, and he's won 3 fights since, and he's looked great in those fights. So, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that was so I guess my point that I'm making is this kid doesn't pass the eye test of someone, the smell test, whatever you want to call it. I don't look at this kid and go, I'm going to put my reputation on the line for this kid. I don't see it. Am I missing something? Did he
Like,
rip somebody's head off? Did he? I mean,
he's a very exciting fighter. He is very good. You know, flyweight always needs more talent, right? But
that's probably the bigger issue here.
This is what I tried, and he missed weight. So
this kid was a lightweight. No way.
Mike Breeden also missed weight on, or no, it wasn't Mike Breeden. It was Steve Garcia missed weight on Contender Series, and then he went out, and then he came back, and then he beat Charlie Ontiveros. You know, John, the guy that has 8 losses, 11 wins, 8 losses by knockout. The guy that the UFC has on the roster. Here's the thing. I'm going to make up a number. The UFC 5 years ago had what? Let's say 400 people on the roster. Now they have about 700 people on the roster. All rough numbers. How do you think this conversation goes backstage? Because Cage Warriors champions probably used to get a pretty little deal when they signed with the UFC. Without Contender Series, let's say 25 and 25. Again, we're making up numbers, all hypothetical. How does this conversation go in the back room? Okay, I'm thinking about signing the kid. Yeah, but it's a 12 and 12 deal. We can't afford that. No, I'm going to sign the kid. Oh, geez, we better get out of here. Like, it's ridiculous. It's not like they're paying them championship money. They're not paying them Moreno money. They're not paying them Adesanya money. So why would it be that big of a deal? I broke my own rules. Oh, gosh, darn it.
Here's an interesting question, and this might be a loophole the UFC uses. I don't know, but I'm just speculating because this is how you conduct business. If you say that if you go through the Contender Series pipeline, that there's a Contender Series contract that's associated with it, kind of like there used to be with Tough. So you say to all your fighters, if you come through the Contender Series pipeline, it's kind of like a rookie deal, right? You can't sign a max until whenever. So if you go through the Contender Series pipeline, you get X and Y. All right. That's a way to kind of get a little bit of a pay cut, get a little bit of a discount on a guy that maybe if he goes back to Cage Warriors, right, starts knocking everybody's head off, if he's everything that you say he is, right, now he could start a bidding war. You've got him in the pipeline, right? You've got him on the Contender Series, and if you were smart and set your contracts up in a certain way, you say to him, guy, listen, this is the gate you're coming through. I'm sorry, this is the gate you're coming through, but to come through this gate, this is what you get paid. So if you want to go back to Cage Warriors and try your luck and see if we might lose interest. Bellator might be the only one willing to pay. You're in the PFL. You're here now. All you did was miss weight. We'll sign you. That makes more sense to me than just Dana having a flyer on a kid and risking his reputation.
We'll have to see what happens, John. And the Contender Series saga continues.
And we move on, Craig, to sparring sessions. Craig, I'm sure that we've talked about this before, but we're going to talk about it again because things have changed. Word on the street is that Henry Cejudo is in the USADA testing pool. Thank you, Uncle Chael. And he wants to come back to UFC, and he wants to fight Alexander Volkanovski. Now, the problem that Chael posed in his video was that Volkanovski wants to fight now. Henry Cejudo needs him to wait. Dana doesn't seem to be interested in that. So here's the question. Am I completely missing the boat with this? Or is this the home run of all home runs? Having Volkanovski, who's, he's an undersized featherweight, fighting, height-wise at least, fighting, they're similar in stature, right? Volkanovski's a little thicker, but maybe Cejudo makes up for that with the wrestling acumen. Meaning this, if ever there was a featherweight that you would want to see him fight, Volkanovski's not bad. So my point is that if you have Quadruple C sitting on the table here, why not go for it if you're the UFC?
Make it triple former C and have him tag in his training partners there, Devison Figueiredo and Zhang Wei Li. Like, what is that? What kind of a picture is that? like, I don't know. It'd be like, let's say the Astros win the World Series this year. Are the Dodgers going to have their back because they won the year before? Like, I don't understand what that picture was about. But what I do know is, like, again, is the juice worth the squeeze? When was the last time this guy fought? It's been a while, right? So for me, champions at 125, 135, 145 to an extent, they don't carry as much, no pun intended, they don't carry as much weight as some of the bigger champions because, it's the age-old thing. 15 years ago, if you went to a bar wearing that shirt and that hat, you'd probably be the type of guy that would go, I bet you I could kick his ass. There's still people that say that. They probably don't watch this show. And if they made it this far, hey, thank you. But, the guy had success at 125. The guy had great success at 135 when he moved up. Now he's been out for a while. Does his name carry as much value to the very casual fan that might only occasionally buy certain pay-per-views? Are they going to be intrigued by this one? I think Cejudo already missed the boat on this. I really do.
Listen, I mean, it wasn't as long ago as you think it was. He last fought in May of last year. So we've had guys that have been on the show for much longer than that, including the guy that he beat in May of last year, Dominic Cruz. So I guess my point I'm trying to make as Conway Twitty enters the conversation is that we just talked about the UFC and their contracts and the way they do business and all that. Here's the question that I will throw at you. I can't. I gotta.
It seems like it's been 15 years ago.
It does.
Look at that guy. That's it.
Well, so maybe it's only make believe. So I think that it could be that as well. Here's the question I'm going to pose to you. When we talk about the UFC and how they do business and how they conduct themselves and sort of, okay, part of the reason why the Khabib thing and the St. Pierre thing may have hit a snag is he's going to be a triple champion. If he wins the belt over Khabib, we know we're never going to see him again, right? So if you're the UFC, you're like, is this one fight worth holding the title up? All right. Now let's go back to Cejudo. Same thing. Is this feat for Cejudo's trophy case worth the pain in the ass he's going to be in negotiations if he's the first triple champ we've ever had? Is it worth it? And to the UFC, I don't think – I mean, you got no problem getting this guy in the ring without that, getting him to come back to defend his own belts. So I think that – and it's funny. Shaquille Majuri talked to Henry Cejudo today, and he put out on Twitter, does anybody have any questions? I DM'd him because I hadn't talked to him in a while. And I said, ask him if the reason why he's conducted his career the way he has is because of the Olympic mentality, meaning he just wants to get the belt and that's the accomplishment and he's fine. And he doesn't care about taking long breaks because he's used to being 4 years in between the big major competitions. And he said, yeah, it's a great question. I'll ask him. I haven't heard the answer yet, but that makes me curious if that's why he's so willing to sort of come and go, and he knows what to do with his time when he's not in full competition.
Super Trooper by ABBA. Your thoughts?
I'm all in on all ABBA. I went to go see Mamma Mia a couple years ago, and they're all right with me.
I like.
And we move on, Craig, to the featured segment. A lot of pressure on you here. A lot of pressure on you. Here's what I need, and I'm going to spend a little time doing this tomorrow. I'm going to spend a little time doing this tonight, just so you guys don't think I'm not a professional, because I am. Bellator prep session. I need it. Tell me what I need to know. And this is typically a 5-minute segment, so let's not get long-winded.
Yeah.
Maybe one hit each fight. Give me one sentence. Tell me what I need to know.
So I'm going to boil down a whole episode of This Week in MMA. And if you missed it, check it out. But at the very start, I had about 3 to 5 minutes of something similar. Just to give you an idea of what you're looking for on this card. So, John, you know this, and I'm gonna be going through this like I'm talking to you. But everybody that's at home that you might not recognize this card, because of course there's UFC this weekend. There's Fight League Atlantic 2 in Moncton. You can't miss that one. But if we go to the start, you had
mentioned. First question before you get started. What is the correct pronunciation of the promotion? Because I'm not, I don't want. Sometimes I have trouble with it. Is it
Bellator or Fight League Atlantic?
It's Bellator. There you go. It's Bellator. Got it. That's going to be important tomorrow.
So Benson Henderson's wife, Maria, took her first fight at LFA 100 back in February of this year. She won a decision against debuting fighter Amanda Mitchell. She's going to be taking Colette Santiago, who's 0-2. That kicks off your Bellator prelims. John, does Henderson corner her to start the night and then fight later on? Like, we've seen that before. Like the Bays, who else? The De La Rosas in the UFC. Do you think they're gonna,
you might see Benson? Did Van Zants ever do it?
I don't know. Well, they never fought for the same promotion.
That's true.
And the same night, right? So, do you think that they will though?
I think so. I think he'll be there.
Bellator has Muhammad Burkamov taking on Jaleel Willis. I've for a long time thought that Jaleel Willis is one of those championship material guys in Bellator, like a top 5 guy. So this fight is giant. Like, this is your featured prelim's really good, and there's a lot of storylines there. This is my can't miss prelim. It's the second one on the card. Like, you're going to want to watch this one. Do you know a lot about Willis or Burkamov?
So Jaleel Willis, if I'm not mistaken, was either at the end of World Series of Fighting or the beginning of PFL, was like one of these prospects like, oh, this guy will be in the UFC soon, and it should never
World
happen.
Series. Yep.
Yeah.
Back in 2016. So, yeah. And he lost to Kyle Stewart. What's Guns Up? Guns Out? Lost to Harvey Park. And then since then, he's won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fights. One over the UFC's own Dakota Bush there, too. And he way out wrestled him. And then if I kind of skip through the prelims a little bit, Lance Gibson Jr.'s got a big fight. Again, bury the Canadian on the prelims, but this guy has a very fun fight style. And I talked about this with Matt in the episode of this week, but one of the most entertaining and thoughtful conversations I've had over the phone doing a Bellator phoner was with Lance Gibson Jr. because you don't really get much of a personality out of a person over the phone. I doubt Lance Gibson did a lot of those phoner interviews, but when I had mine with him, I just thought, let's let it fly. I'm going to ask him a bunch of weird questions, and I'm going to have fun with it. I asked him what it was like to model for Roots of Fight. He's like, what? Well, yeah, I get, it's my buddy, and I just do it there, and, it's going to be fun. But the big story there, Julia Budd is stepmother, no longer with Bellator, but she's at the event. She just signed with the PFL. Lots of storylines there. Gregory Milliard is from Aruba. He knocks people out. He's fighting Javier Torres. He has fun fights. Bobby Lee, not the comedian. He has fun fights.
Side note, I saw Bobby Lee at the Comedy Store, and I got to say this publicly. I've heard his podcast. I've seen him on other podcasts. Never thought he was funny. The guy destroyed at the Comedy Store. I was crying. He was hilarious in his stand-up. I've never seen his stand-up. I've only seen podcasts.
Was Stevie Weeby there?
No. Who's the Ali Wong was there, though?
Ali Wong?
It's a good night.
She has specials. My wife likes her. The big one on the prelims that I'm surprised right now, tentatively way up at the top, Dion Clash is taking on Sullivan Colley. Do you know Sullivan Colley, John?
I don't.
He's an Arizona guy, and he's the main training partner of Ryan Bader. So he's got a wrestling background too. He has that one fight. I remember we actually did a full-length preview and prediction for that fight. So that's a good one. He's
a handsome bastard is what he is. Look at this guy on Tapology, man. This guy's got some things going on in his life.
Yeah, look at Carl Albrechtsen. He has a win and a loss to Yuri Prohashka, and he also has a win over Vadim Nemkov. So hasn't really figured it out lately. He was a rising superstar. He's taken on Dovletsan Yagshimuradov, who made his Bellator debut in the quarterfinals of the Bellator Light Heavyweight Grand Prix against one. There's levels to this. Levels. Corey Henderson. Don't tell him I said that either. That fight's a lot of fun. Vladislav Probyanchenko. They want him to be the next Ukrainian guy, just like Yaroslav Amosov, except he's not. And he has a little bit of a padded record. And Henry Corrales either wins in impressive fashion or loses in equally impressive fashion. That should be one of those bangers of a fight. Like, I'm really looking forward to that. I love Corrales' style. Probyanchenko definitely didn't impress me in his debut. So what do you know about Corrales other than the fact that he beat Aaron Pico?
We're friends on Facebook. Other than that.
That's weird. You guys share recipes?
We don't.
Oh. Your guy, Benson Henderson, a guy that I've said is the best UFC lightweight champion ever.
You have said that.
I have said that. Taking on Brent Primus.
You're no stranger to the far end of a limb. I've been out on a few limbs in your day.
You want to see a limb? So there's a lot of cards around here. I've got my Brandon Lau collection up there right now because I felt like, what? Suckers, guys that weren't able to get it done. I have a card in front of me, Topps Project 70 from this year. You see who it is?
Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Do you know who designed this card? Who actually made it? It says it right here.
Henry Corrales.
Brittany Palmer.
Oh, wow.
UFC,
who knew?
Ring girl. She's actually a really talented artist. So I had to pick that one up. Just throwing some fun stuff at you. Primus Henderson, Do you think there's going to be a submission in this one, or is it just Scramble City?
Scramble City.
Okay, I'm all there for it. Bader taking on Beaston 25-8. Which seasons of The Ultimate Fighter did they win?
Ooh, Bader was like not 2, was it? He was like 8.
Season 8. What season did Corey Henderson win?
Oh, Jesus. 20?
19. You're really close.
I'm really close.
Vadim Nemkov taking on Julius Angliskis. It's Angliskis. I listened to him pronounce it himself time and again to make sure I didn't make the mistake. Julius, overlooked by a lot of people. Vadim Nemkov, people are saying, why doesn't the UFC have him? So he's a really interesting guy. And you know what? He has a win in Bellator at 205 pounds over an eventual millionaire and then UFC fighter at heavyweight, Felipe Lins. Pretty exciting stuff.
It is pretty exciting stuff. So,
are you excited? Because you don't sound like it.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited about the card. I'm very excited about the event. I'm glad it's here in Phoenix. Last time we were in Phoenix, some things came together. I couldn't go. I'm glad I can go to this one.
Whoa.
But listen,
are you gonna go to the Bellator event next weekend?
Where's that?
Oh, it's in Russia.
I'm gonna miss that one.
Oh, shoot.
My visa's not cleared. So listen, I wouldn't be my casual self if I didn't ask this question. I listened to everything that you said. I'm going to read up. I'm going to listen to the podcast with you and Matt. I'm going to do everything I need to do before this card. But can we talk for a second about, as I'm looking at this topology, Samiko and Abba? I mean,
I saw she had an interview.
That's not a bad Google search, Craig. I'm just saying. It's not a bad Google search.
Yeah, I saw she had an interview with Drake Riggs today, the Lady Samurai. Really impressive amateur record, really impressive fighter as it is. And I think she's one of those slow burn up to the title. I think she has a good opportunity, especially in this division if you really look at it, because she's competing at flyweight. Alejandra Lara made it all the way to a title shot. I think if you build her up the right way, we're getting into a very, very marketable fighter and a very talented fighter.
I love the way you put things. She's gorgeous. Marketable fighter. God bless Craig Allen. And we move on to the socials this week. For the gram, let's talk about Hooker and Makhachev. Let's get this update. We touched on this a couple weeks ago, but it has a few new wrinkles. One, Hooker says Makhachev is just another body, but also it's kind of like beating Khabib. And a story came out. I'm not sure who the manager was, but a manager says that Hooker's just kind of looking to collect checks. So here's the thing. I feel like we went from a couple of months ago or pre-pandemic, Hooker was like this guy that was going to be the next champ in that division. And now it's like, I feel like it's a lot of grabbing at straws. Maybe not the next champ, but like an action fighter, a guy who had relevance in the division. And now it's like he's somewhere between Paul Felder and Justin Gaethje. These guys that are like, you put him in there because you want a good fight, but you don't really expect, he's cut from that Felder, Gaethje, Cerrone cloth of like, we put you in there, we want a good fight, we really don't expect you to ever be a champion. What's up with this guy? What are your vibes?
I've got a comparison for one of those two fighters. I can't seem to come up with one for Dan Hooker. If Dan Hooker was a current day NBA player, who would he be? Dante DiVincenzo?
Maybe. I feel like he's somebody that like so Ben Simmons is too high of a compliment, but he's somebody that like has skills, right? You can't deny his skills, but you know he'll never be a champion. You know what I mean? There's
like
some
Robert
guys
Williams
like,
for my Celtics.
Yeah, maybe
all
it's
right.
and listen, I hate to say this because of what happened last year. Could be
Islam Makhachev's like this guy. You see how much his rookie cards are worth, John?
No,
this guy. Oh, it's I haven't cursed in a number of segments now. It's fucking insane. Go on eBay right now and look up the price of LaMelo Ball rookie cards. This one's a Donruss Great Expectations. It's not worth, it's worth like $8 or $10. But some of those puppies, it's stupid. But Islam Makhachev is one of those guys.
Side note before we move on to one Twitter hitter. That's how you know how inexact a science scouting is. Everybody hated that kid when he came out, and everybody was wrong. No one saw the guy that we have now. No one saw that coming. They were taking every chance they could to cut his legs out from under him. And we move on to one Twitter hitter. Let's talk about Carla Esparza. Dana wants her to fight for a belt. She doesn't want to fight for a belt. Who's right?
I mean, she's won the belt. Like, what's left? Money fights. Let's see these Carla Esparza money fights. I don't know. It's weird. I want her to fight for the title. So what does she have to do? Main event a fight night against Marina Rodriguez again? Like, they have to fight again? But at 5 rounds? I don't understand this. I really don't understand the dynamics of the strawweight division. Is it the best women's division in the UFC? Yeah, 100%. I love watching Valentina Shevchenko mop the floor with the flyweights. I love watching Amanda Nunes mop the floor with 2 different divisions. But I don't understand the dynamics of strawweight. I really don't. I'm serious.
Well, wasn't it? It was her and Nami Yunus for the belt, wasn't it? I mean, to start this whole thing?
Yeah,
Wasn't it the 2 of them in the finale of The Ultimate Fighter?
Yeah.
So, I mean, is that the goal? Is it the goal to ultimately match the 2 of them up again? I mean, is that what we're shooting for here? I mean, Esparza won the first one.
Yeah, but couldn't they have done that before they had Rose fighting Zhang Wei Li again? Like,
they could have, but I mean, they need a willing partner here, and they don't have one.
I don't get it. I seriously, it's like the value of LaMelo Ball rookie cards. I just don't get it. I honestly don't get it. I'm sorry. Sorry, Twitter.
We move on to posting to the book. I saw this one out of the corner of my eye when I was doing the research. BJ Penn is considering a run for governor of Hawaii. Here's why I think this is hilarious. Because when people gain popularity, what do they always say? This guy could be governor. Benson Henderson could be the mayor of Phoenix if he wanted to. And
probably could. He seems like a likable guy.
But that's the thing that they say to sort of show someone's popularity.
Tito Ortiz, he could be a counselor in Huntington Beach.
Exactly. He could be mayor pro tem of Huntington Beach. What do you think about this? Do you think that in light of what we've seen from BJ Penn in recent times, does that make him more like a governor or less like a governor?
John, I don't know how your American politics work, pal.
You do.
I don't know, man. Politics.
You're the most American Canadian kid I've ever met in my life.
What's the sales tax in Arizona?
I don't even know. 12%, I think. Does that sound high? 12%.
Yeah, because in Maine it's 5%, and they don't have sales tax in New Hampshire. You know what it is in New Brunswick?
Tell me.
15%.
This
is the dull part. This is for your grandmother on Facebook anyway. What is it in Arizona? It's probably low.
I was way off. It's 5%.
Yeah, it's 5%. It's 15% in New Brunswick. So, you want to buy a car? 15%. You want to buy equipment? 15%. It's ridiculous. All of this to say, governments lately, every now and again, it's like, a kid running for high school class president.
Listen, come off whenever we have these conversations. You
a lot of popularity content. It always is popularity contest.
You come off very highfalutin. You come off very uppity. You come off holier than thou when it comes to these conversations. You live in Hawaii, Craig Allen, and BJ Penn's on the ballot. Are you going to sit there in a plaid shirt with a straight face and tell me that you're not voting for BJ Penn if you live in Hawaii?
What's his platform? What's his thought on the Hawaiian sales tax?
No, it's probably
thinking about import-export. What are we doing for public education, schools, roads, healthcare?
See, this is what I mean, guys. This is what I mean, fans of Early Stoppage. Craig Allen's coming through, doing all this stuff. If he lives in Hawaii, he walks in, he pulls that lever for BJ Penn so fast your head spins. That's how fast he pulls that lever.
Don't put words in my mouth.
That's fair. All right, Craig, let's move on to start the conversation. Mackenzie Dern came out this week and says, I feel like we talked about this before, maybe it's resurfacing, says that beautiful women have to prove themselves even more than men. Does this make sense to you? And what proof of it is this? And the first thing I thought, this is sound horrible, and let me preface what I'm about to say by saying
maybe you shouldn't say it at all.
I probably shouldn't, but here it goes. Mackenzie Dern is beautiful, as well as all other MMA female fighters. They're all beautiful, right? But when you say something like this, it's kind of like you're trying to speak something into existence. And like maybe a bunch of people weren't calling you beautiful, but you're like, it's so tough being beautiful. And everybody's kind of like, is it? Like, are you really the one that should be carrying this torch? But anyway, that's neither here nor there. My point is, do you see where she's coming from, and do you agree with it or disagree with it? As a beautiful female MMA fighter yourself, how do you relate to this?
Yeah, when they do like, the sexiest 100 MMA media members.
You'll crack the 100.
I'm not even an honorable mention. I'm like,
you'll crack the 100.
3,000. No, because we got guys that host below the belt, like at number 2. So
we're all looking up at Drake Riggs. So don't worry. We're all looking up at
and let them know that. Let them know that when you see him this weekend. Because I've never actually met him face to face. So you tell him that for me. He reaches the pinnacle. But when I look at this, what was the context for her to have to say this? Because I feel like, and this is just personal feelings here, the last 3 UFC cards, and that includes this weekend, are very bad. Very, very, very bad. This weekend's UFC card, and I saw it tweeted out there, I think it was Alexander K. Lee that tweeted. Actually, I know it was, so shout out to the fellow Canadian. But the tweet was, this is the first UFC card since they've had the rankings that not a single fighter is ranked in their division. Aspinallad is ranked, but it's at bantamweight, and her fight this weekend's at featherweight. Last weekend, Dern Rodriguez, bad card. The weekend before that, Walker Santos, bad card. All 2 out of 5 stars on Fight Matrix. Was Mackenzie Dern saying this because people were saying, oh, this is a bad card, and she felt a little bit of added pressure? I don't know the context to this one, but to answer the actual questions that is in front of me, yeah, they probably do. I mean, women's MMA it's not a novel concept, but compared to the overall, history of MMA, which started in what? The UFC started in 93. So let's say from 93 on, when was the first women's fight?
In the UFC?
Yeah.
It would have been Ronda. So I'm trying to remember what.
Was it Ronda Carmouche?
Yeah, that was the first one.
Okay, so from then until now, it's been a much shorter period of time. That's all I have to say to that one. So I feel like, that creates an obvious barrier. You can never get past that one. And people might, not want to watch that main event. I mean, hell, you know where I was watching that main event, John? Mackenzie Dern and Marina Rodriguez?
Tell me.
It was in a hospital waiting room when my hand was blown up like a friggin' balloon last week. Did you see that sucker? Yeah. My whole arm swelled up. I still have the mark from the wasp, but you got to watch out for those Walmart wasps. They'll get you. All that to say, I was sitting there with an IV in my hand, watching it on my lap. I can't imagine if somebody from that hospital walked by my phone and saw what I was watching. They probably think I was clear nuts. They probably would have. But all this to say, yeah, Mackenzie Dern probably does have a real point. I look at things through rose-colored glasses, I guess. You heard my answer earlier on. I just try and break down the fights. I don't really, it is tough, but I don't have any proof of this.
Well, I'm going to say this, and this has long been something that I've said to friends of mine, obviously, and listen, I'm 44 years old, so there's a time when I was a lot less understanding of the women's play before I got married, before I have a daughter. I mean, I understand it more now than I ever have. But I used to make this joke with my buddies that was kind of a commentary on women's issues, which is this. If a gorgeous woman cured cancer, the first thing a guy would say to another guy is, "Did you see how hot the girl was that cured cancer?" They wouldn't just say this person cured cancer. So you're overcoming your looks always when you're a woman to a certain extent, is the point that I'm making. So I don't know that it's harder for them, but I think the more attractive you are, the less likely that people are going to think you're a good fighter. So yeah, you have to overcome it in that sense. Although we do have a pretty good track record of beautiful women being great fighters. Valentina Shevchenko. I mean, you can disagree about what your taste is, but I mean, Ronda Rousey is pretty thought as universally beautiful. Misha Tate. There's a long list of women who have fought very well. Kat Ngannou, and they're attractive. So, but that doesn't mean that dispels the notion that once someone sees you as attractive, it doesn't. If you again. Anyone who's attractive has to face this. If if George Clooney was your actual doctor, the first thing that you would say when he came in and left the room is, "Jesus Christ, my doctor's good looking." Like that's what anybody who's attractive has to overcome. So I get where she's coming from. I just happen to think, like, I took Miesha Tate. I always took Miesha Tate, who I think is gorgeous, serious as a fighter, but she couldn't get over the hump with Ronda. And obviously when she won the belt, that's what put her in the Hall of Fame. So I understand where Mackenzie Dern's coming from. I guess the point that I would make in opposition to that is that, yeah, but if you have these accomplishments, that doesn't matter, right? Like, yes, Miesha Tate is beautiful. She's always been beautiful and probably always will be. But the fact that she's won the belt is what makes her a Hall of Famer. And it didn't make it harder to win the belt because she was attractive, right? She still had to fight the same people.
I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, how do I reach the pinnacle? Because I read these articles and I go, who's the man behind the article? And then I see it's Drake Riggs, and shit, this guy's too good looking.
Yes.
It got me beat.
I mean, it would be bad enough if he just had the genetics, right? If he just had the genetics, but then he had to sprinkle the swag on top of it. He had the mustache
and he's such a snappy dresser.
And the dressing, right? It's bad enough that the genetics are there. But then he just rubs it in your face with all the other shit. All right, So we move on, Craig, to finish strong. I got a couple three. We'll see what you have. Paul Felder's considering a comeback. Do you care?
I care. I mean, I thought it was pretty cool how that was on Brendan Fitzgerald's YouTube page. So shouts to Brendan Fitzgerald. I really like Fitzgerald, actually. I think he does a great job. And for somebody that got into MMA a little later, I mean, he's kind of broke that barrier, right? You think?
I like him too. He's a little too on the nose with Mike Goldberg for me. It seems like if you were on The Voice and Brendan Schaub was
I would never be
Brendan
on The
Schaub.
Voice.
If you were a judge on The Voice and Brendan Fitzgerald was behind you, and you would hit your button thinking you were going to spin around and see Mike Goldberg. That's how much of a Mike Goldberg impression it is. But you're right. I think that I listen to a lot of Mike Goldberg in my day. He sounds very similar.
You must watch a lot of The Voice too.
I do. And we move on. Let's talk about Violent Bob Ross. A little too violent, bad joke, poor timing, but he's in hot water, released by the UFC. Here's my question for you. And this is the question I would ask Bob Ross, or Violent Bob Ross, Luis Pena, to his face. If you think that cutting Luis Pena is too much, right, then what's the path to redemption for him? What if you're Luis Pena, would you do? And what would you do if you were Luis Pena and you had to factor in that you're the UFC? Like, what is the right answer here for Luis Pena? What do you think? I mean, is it just a simple, if we see these kind of allegations, we cut ties, or is there some nuance to it?
You asked me a lot of different questions. I'm going to try and respond to the first one.
Pick your favorite.
If I'm him, I try and face my demons head on, get the help that I need, make amends with the people that I've wronged, and then try and better myself and society. Does that sound like a political answer? Like I'm carrying on from before? That's seriously what I would do. Like that's just, you never want to read headlines like that. You don't. So go about it that way. And then maybe if an organization gives you an opportunity, make the most of it. But yeah, I mean, he's got a lot on his plate outside of fighting for right now.
I agree. We move on. Let's talk Masvidal and Edwards. This thing's kind of gone back and forth.
3-piece in the soda.
We have a confirmed bout now. We talked a while ago about how Chael said the fight will never happen because if it does, then fighters will just start picking fights in the backstage area to get themselves fights. I think Dana waited long enough to have fighters understand that that's not going to get you what you want necessarily. A couple questions. Do you like the fight? Should it be for the BMF belt? And do you think it's going to get worse before it gets better with the pre-fight stuff?
I mean, Leon Edwards looked like a BMF when he fought Bilal Muhammad and then when he fought Nate Diaz. So, yeah, make it something funny. Make a 3-piece in the soda belt. Bring out, like, Daryl Hammond as the Colonel or Reba McEntire and make it a whole thing. Have fun with it. I'm all right with the fight. Welterweight's a weird division. Like, where does Wonder Boy fit into all of this, right? Where does Gilbert Burns, Gilbert and Ariel Helwani, they're having a little bit of fun on Twitter too. Ariel's having fun with everybody. I don't know.
Can I just say, well, hold on. Can I just say something about that before we go on?
Yeah.
I listen, and this may be talking out of the side of my neck here, and trust me, I've never said anything I'm not prepared to back up. But I will say this. This whole thing about Brendan Schaub just flexing on everybody, it's kind of lame in this respect. Yeah, we get it. You're a former fighter. So saying that Ariel Helwani wouldn't say something to your face, to me, is equating the fact to that if someone said something that was disapproving to you to your face, it means you automatically get to punch him in the face. That's not the way the world works, dude. Like,
Society's rules.
I get that you're a former fighter, and good for you. But all this whole, like, all the MMA media is a bunch of snowflakes, and they're all, listen, man, some of us have done some things and been some places that you haven't been. Yeah, you played football and you fought for a living. Some of us have gone over and signed up to put our lives on the line. You're not the only tough motherfucker in the world. So what I would say to him is that, there's a saying. It's only a fight if there's a chance you can lose. So if everything you're saying about Ariel Helwani is true, you shouldn't be in a fight with him. Right? There's no because if you can't lose the fight, you're just a bully.
There's a lot of bullying going on, right? Like, I just look at this and I sit back and I just watch it and I listen to my ABBA record, Super Trooper, and I enjoy it. It's very fun to watch and to listen to, but yeah, at the end of the day, it doesn't make you look any better. Are you trying to like win one on them? Because it doesn't make you look all that great, right? Like, I just don't get it anymore. I don't understand why you'd be so petty, why you'd go to those lengths. And I mean, for Ariel, you got to defend your good name. It's all you got, right? So I understand why Ariel's kind of kept things going. I don't so much understand why. Just move on at this point. Like, cut your losses. Stop talking about it.
Well, and listen, I watched the Chappelle special, and obviously there was a lot of controversy associated with it, but he used a phrase in it that I think applies here, which is you shouldn't punt down. So either Brendan Schaub thinks he's punching laterally and then him and Ariel Helwani are equals, or he's punching down. Ariel's clearly punching up. So I think he needs to look at it from that perspective as well. Now, to end this thing, before we say our goodbyes, I got something I want to throw at you because this is a piece of TikTok content I'm going to do at the Footprint Center on Media Row. I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to ask it of every media member there I can. We'll see how willing they are to play along. Because I saw this on TikTok. Who's the media member you wouldn't let date your sister?
Drake Riggs.
And it all comes full circle, folks. So there you have it.
Yeah.
Craig can be followed at Craig on FFP and get more stuff like that. I can be followed at SM Cornerman. I never tweet. The fight has been stopped. We'll see you next week. Craig, you've already said something witty, but if you have something else to say witty, or you want to just leave on a high note.
Look out for the guy on Twitter that's at DRAKE capital RIGGS_.
He's a certified lover boy. Peace.